Okay, guys, we're back here with everyone's favorite guest.
Oh, that's so nice. And so much pressure.
And the book has come out since.
It has.
I got a lot of comments and questions about the sequels, which, yes, obviously, I know way more than everyone else. So, sorry. But my favorite book. How are you feeling now that you're, like, an author? We had, like, a little book launch party for Jessa. It was very cute.
Actually gone very close to how I daydreamed, which
Really?
is
Wow.
about as good as you can hope for something, I
Very
guess.
true.
Like, yeah, I mean, people have taken to it so well, and it feels like it has a little cult following, and
Yes.
they're so obsessive about it, and it's so nice. It makes me so happy. So, yeah, it's gone really well.
Yeah, it's see, only I could like make this book somehow about myself, but I love the book. It's my favorite book. I've
Thank
gone
you.
through this so many times.
Thank
So if
you,
you guys
thank
haven't checked
you.
it out, Magnolia Parks, it'll be in the show notes below.
It's really good. You'll like it.
Promise. We are back because you guys loved the part 1 of navigating your 20s episode. I have never received so many DMs
So
about an
nice.
episode, and I mean just listens. Like everyone's just loving it. So we're gonna be doing that. But first, I believe in our last episode, and just in our day-to-day friendship, Jessica like has an issue with quite literally almost every single drink that I drink, specifically
Yes.
my matcha with peppermint. How do you feel about it?
Because it's mixy. It's very mixy. I feel like those are two flavors that shouldn't be combined. Peppermint should not be combined with grass. It's just not natural. But then Kenzie did just tell me about some stupid mushroom coffee she's been drinking, so now that seems worse.
I said I had a chagachino and I just waited for your reaction. I knew it was coming. That one tastes just like normal coffee. Like if I gave that to you,
I wouldn't know?
You wouldn't know.
Okay. But you
Yeah.
like that New Orleans drink. You keep talking about
Yeah.
that. I don't like that one.
Okay, I don't understand you. We're just
No.
different. I love that drink. It is my favorite coffee ever.
I think it's not a weird combination of flavors. I just didn't like it.
You're also difficult because you're from Australia. So like I don't think any drink that I have will please you.
Australian coffee is superior to every other coffee,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's not really an argument though. That's just
No, that's just
fact.
facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do a live taste test. If you guys are watching the YouTube video or the TikToks,
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm actually nervous.
did you need to pray before? Is that what was happening?
I don't even know how to. Does it taste like grassy peppermint? That's what it's going to taste like in my head.
It doesn't taste grassy. I mean, you can try it.
Okay.
It's good.
It does taste like grassy peppermint.
Okay. Okay, give it a rating on a 1 to 10.
It's not as well, the aftertaste isn't so good.
Okay,
the
let me-
aftertaste tastes like grass.
Okay. I knew you weren't going to like this, but this is a Starbucks, by the way, an iced matcha latte with peppermint syrup, okay? And also, I don't know if I even gave you enough peppermint. Can you taste peppermint in there?
Yeah, I can. It just tastes like minty grass.
Okay. I mean, I used to be a matcha hater too back in the day.
It's not like I'll sip it throughout the listen, it's not my beverage of choice.
Okay.
But I'm not gagging.
Okay, so honestly, this one a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, I'd say it's like a 2 out of 10 for me.
Okay, maybe not. Yeah, well, honestly, next episode, it'll be a chagachino. A 2 out of 10 is honestly one higher.
It's better on the second sip.
Oh, it is? Okay, maybe,
I'm not giving it a gold star, but it's
maybe 3 out of 10?
yeah, I'll say 3 out of 10.
Okay.
I don't like the aftertaste. If I keep drinking it and I don't get an aftertaste, because the aftertaste is where the grass hits you.
I need you to understand that Starbucks matcha is literally sugar. It's
Well, then
not even
I
real
don't think
matcha.
I'm gonna like real matcha then.
No, you will not like real matcha. You won't. Okay, well,
not for me.
I liked the taste test. I'm glad that we did this.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to follow up. I'm nothing if I'm not someone who follows up. You
That's
know?
true.
This is actually your idea, to be fair. I wouldn't have made you do this.
No, but you know what? Because I messaged you the other day and I said, I'm thinking about matcha because it keeps popping up.
Well,
And
you
so
said-
I wanted to try it.
Actually, you said, please do not hold this over my head or ever bring this up to me ever again. I don't need to hear it from you. Anyways, so how do I drink matcha? Yeah. Did you ever have it?
No, because
Okay.
then I think we talked about having it on here, and I was like, I'll just save it because
Yeah. I work at
it seemed scary. I didn't know how to order it.
Starbucks matcha is not the best matcha, though, I will
Okay.
say. Like, you could go to Alfred and get, like, an iced matcha latte with oat milk or something.
Well, I think you had talked about. Did you
Chacha
say
matcha?
something about a nitro matcha?
Oh my god, my nitro latte from Chacha Matcha. Don't even get me started on that. Do you know, I can only go to Matcha when I'm in LA or New York. Lucky for me, I'm there pretty much every other week at this point. So I go in oftentimes. This is like my, one of the more consistent dramas in my life. Their nitro latte machine is broken every single day or it's out. Out of the past 6 times of me trying to go, I've gotten it 1 time.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So it's kind of one of those things that I think I have to put to rest. But I happily spend like $8.50 on my nitro latte every day in college? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I'm not proud of it, but it's okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably a nitro matcha sounds like, because I don't like black coffee, but I do like a nitro. So
yeah, that might be, and it's really smooth.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
Probably where it is.
Okay, maybe we'll try that one too. Okay, people have a lot of questions for you.
Oh gosh.
And everyone's really confused in their 20s, as we've experienced, as we've established. Yeah, as all the texts that you received from me. And you know what? I have texted less questions recently because I knew I was going to do it on episode. You're
welcome.
Here we are. So we have lots of questions. I'm just kind of pulling them up. The first one being, this was a kind of an overall theme, questioning if I'm in the right job, relationship, or friendships or city.
Oh gosh, there's so many different things.
Good luck.
Okay, questioning job, friendships, relationships, city. Okay, let's go one by one. Job. I don't think you need to be committed to a job in your 20s. I think you figure out your 20s. I think we spoke about this last time, but your 20s is like figuring yourself out. So do what makes you happy, or do the thing that doesn't make you happy, and then learn from that and do something eventually that does. Like I think that there's this unhealthy fascination or like press towards deciding your whole life in high school because of college, which is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And in Australia, it's really common to do a gap year. And a gap year usually extends to many years where people go and travel and they learn about themselves, and then they come back and they are a little bit more informed about who they are and what they want to be doing.
But that makes sense.
I think it does make sense.
Yes.
I think that's what I'm going to tell my kids
Yeah.
to do. Like, go and figure yourself out a little before you start making these big decisions.
To be fair, though, I think Junie has herself more figured out than I do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. She's going to be a scientist, and that's that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we continue. Little background, Junie is the most intelligent,
It's true.
perfect, well-spoken, perfect human being at like 5-6 years old.
She's 5. She's got a lot of opinions, and she's very clever.
She's always right too.
She's well,
No.
Okay, she is.
Kind of is.
Yeah. So I reckon with a job, I think just do the job and then learn from it, and don't. I think you enter thinking I can change my mind. I think that's one thing that our culture is very, very bad at, is changing your mind on things. And I think we need to be open to being like, I made a mistake. I was like that all this last month. We got a dog, and I said to Ben, we've made a mistake. We've made a mistake. And he was like, yeah, well, we can't take it back because, he's alive. So,
yeah.
And I was like, no, but I'm telling you, I've made a mistake and I don't want the dog anymore. We've made a mistake. If you're listening, Banner, I love you.
Yeah. Things have changed.
No, he went away for a very long time to a training camp, and now he actually is a lot better.
Good.
Thank God, because it was a bleak 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks.
Too difficult.
Yeah, way too difficult. So change your mind. Be okay with changing your mind. And then I think it's more like other people need to be okay with people changing their minds. You know what I mean? Like, people can evolve and people can change, and I think you need to approach that with in a work environment. Nothing makes me happier. I read something on Upworthy the other day about a lady who graduated med school in her 60s because she just decided she wanted to be a doctor, and she'd spent her whole life doing something else, and then she was like, no, I want to be a doctor, and she did it. I think that's the best thing I've ever heard. So change your mind. That's what I would say about jobs. Be open to changing your mind anyway. Don't just change your mind like for fun.
What if you feel like you're in the wrong relationship, or if you don't know?
This is hard because I think if you don't know, then you know.
Yeah.
Being on the other side of it, I have been with the wrong people. When I found the right person, Ben and I both knew like that. Like it was very quick. We were engaged within 6 months. We were talking about getting married in 3 months. And I don't think that was like the product of us being in like the church environment that we were in. I actually think it was because I had dated stupid people before that I then knew.
Yes.
And I guess I had dated what I knew I didn't want to be with at that point, and then there was no questions. I had questions in every other relationship, even the ones that I loved with my whole heart. I was still a bit like, but how is this gonna work? And then with Ben, I was kind of like, oh no, it's gonna work. Because it's when you say it's gonna work, it's just eventually you'll meet a person where you're like, I'm gonna make this work no matter what. That's what it is. So if you're questioning it and you're kind of like, can this work? It's actually just because you don't want to make it work. Because you can make it work. If you want it to work, it will work because you'll make the sacrifices you need to make, and they're not going to feel like sacrifices because you love that person.
Yeah, by the way, I'm fully relying on either you or Ben to set me up with someone. So
Please don't. I have like 2 single friends, and I'm not going to set you up with either of them. They're terrible. Terrible people. I hope both of you listen to that, and you know who I mean. I know you both know who I mean. And
I know, but
is this camera on?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think that you know them yet. I just think,
good. Okay.
Yeah, I think that you'll come into contact with them, and then it will, you'll be like, oh,
I hope
that's
so.
it.
Do you know what? I accept.
You can give a speech at the wedding.
I accept.
Okay, good. What about wrong city?
Oh, just move.
Agreed. I also want to say, I think I see so often on one end, I'm like, just move, do whatever you want, I don't care. And then also, I think if you are a person who every single city you move to is quote unquote wrong.
Right.
You are wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's something off with you that you need to deal with rather than keep running from each city pretending that's the problem.
I've never had this experience really because I've only lived in Sydney, and I came to LA for a couple of months when I was like 20, and then now we've obviously moved here. And so I've never been like a city jumper, but I do think if you're kind of like, oh, well, I understand if it's like the place that you've grown up in, you need to spread your wings or whatever. Like, just, I think you just move. But yeah, you're right. If you're hopping city to city,
Yeah.
you're probably the problem. But that's like most things. If you're hopping relationship to relationship, if you're hopping friendship group to friendship group, you're probably the problem. We are the common thread in our own lives.
If you are the common denominator,
Yeah.
just like check yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's like the one thing I have. I just see it all the time and I'm like, okay, I mean, whatever. But I do think there are times where it's like, definitely move.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. Especially in your 20s, like you have the least amount of responsibility you'll ever have.
Yeah.
So just do something.
And you're the perfect age for setting up roots in other places because everyone else your age is doing the same thing. So you end up finding this like pocket of people that kind of feel lonely and lost like you do, and then they become your like chosen family. Mm-hmm. That's what's good about your 20s.
True. Okay, what about ways to build confidence?
I don't know. I'll let you know when I figure it out.
You're like, we'll circle back to that one.
No, I think ways to build confidence is kind of just getting to know yourself again. I think that's mostly that's the key of your 20s is getting to know yourself, because when you get to know yourself and you there's this, when you're in high school and there are so many things about wanting to fit in that makes it so hard to accept any part of yourself that doesn't fit perfectly into what you think you're meant to be. Mm-hmm. I feel like your 20s should be about recalibrating your thinking towards yourself and then feeling it out and being like, okay, well, I really like this, and what does this say about me? And I don't like this, what does this say about me? And I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's any wrong way to be, really, unless you're hurting people or you know what I mean? Like, obviously there's a massive caveat to that. But I think that a huge part of growing in confidence is really just an exploration learning about yourself and then being comfortable with yourself and then liking yourself. And I don't think you get that in your 20s. I think your 20s are so tumultuous. I'm 32 now, and I feel like there really was this big, they talk about how you're like, I think now 40, I don't know. At the time, I remember thinking people are always saying that 30s are your best year or your 30s are your best decade because they're sad to be 30. That was genuinely what I thought. And a little bit of me thinks it now because everyone's like, your 40s are the best. And I'm like, you guys are just getting older and you just want to keep saying that it's the best when that's the age you are. But I do feel like there is something about being in your 30s that you just suddenly don't care about so much of the little shit. Like it just falls away, and it's not conscious. It just happens. Like this part of you elevates. I don't know what it is, and you aren't scared the way you used to be anymore. You don't care about people's opinions anymore, and it's so nice. And I wish that there was a thing I could say, well, this is the roadmap to doing that. But I just think there's a thing about getting older where it's like the more space you have, you're looking back on these things that suddenly are so small, and you see it in this new perspective, and you're like, doesn't matter. Like, none of it matters. And then I think that kind of, it's such a vague answer, but I think that confidence does come with age. And if it doesn't, that is, and we're in LA and women can be so mean here. so mean. But I think that's a them problem. For healthy people, the older you get, the more confidence you should be getting. I think anyway.
I am really excited for my 30s. Everyone says that. You are gonna
love your 30s. I can feel it on you.
I wasn't born and made to be 23, 24. Like, those ages are really just not for me. I would have loved to just skip. And unfortunately, that's just like not how it works.
No,
but
it's not.
It's like so annoying. Please don't remind me. But I just really want to be 30.
Yeah, but you'll love 30. I can tell.
6 more years. Yeah. We got a lot of questions too about like faith stuff. People love to like church hurt, whatever. Mm-hmm. People were asking how to kind of like make your faith your own again when you've been like traumatized, that's actually the word they used, by a certain organization. So this can be any kind of faith.
Okay. It is, I guess the thing I'd say at the top is people need to start being okay with like facing pain head on. There is always so much pain in any kind of like trauma to do with like a church hurting you or a religion hurting you or whatever. It's so personal because people do such a bad job of separating God from the people running the services.
Yeah.
And the older I have gotten, one of the most important revelations I've ever had is that people, whether they're a Christian or not, whether they're whatever religion, they are just people. And that's it. That you can't have a higher expectation for them. You might want to be able to, but you can't. They're just people, and they are going to make a mistake, and they are going to hurt you. So that's the first thing I think is like accepting that people will hurt you in all the time. It's always going to happen. You just need to be forgiving. You need to be releasing about what happens and the way people treat you, and try and treat people better. And but with church specifically, moving through it, I think you just have to, I guess it's circling back to that. You really have to separate the people from God, one thing. And then I think you have to be okay with losing your faith a little bit to find it. I mean, I feel like I know God better now than I have at any point in my life. But the comma to that sentence is I don't know him at all. And that part was like massive to me, because I think there's this big, especially in Christianity, this big push of being like, to know God and he's my friend and we have this personal relationship. And I understand all that. I don't necessarily think that rhetoric is healthy anymore, but I do think that it's like the way I approach it now is like it's a lifetime pursuit of I'm never going to know God. I'm going to try for forever to figure him out. I'm not going to be able to do it. So it's like a lean into the unknown of being like, okay, well, he is so much higher. He's obviously like an elevated being that we're never going to.
I just poked my eye really bad. I'm like, sorry, continue. I know. Sorry, cameras, guys. Anyways, back to the very serious talk. Yes.
I think that, I've forgotten what I'm saying.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
It's a lifelong pursuit of trying to figure God out. And I don't think you can put confinements around that really. For me, when I very vividly remember maybe like 4-ish years ago having this crisis. We were in wine country and I just had this moment where I was like, I don't know anything. So I grew up in church. We've been a part of our church for 20 years. I love it so much. And I was but I would say one of the hard things about the way I grew up was that God was really like, he was served on a platter in a really accessible way. And so you could really feel the Holy Spirit in a church service, but you never had to find him for yourself. And I feel like I look back when 20 years ago, no, I'm not that old, but like 15 years ago, when it was, when we were kids in like the youth ministry, there was so much like fervor and passion and I think it's so sad because there's like no one's left really. There's a few people that I grew up with that are still here, and I think it's because God was so accessible for us like that, but we were never taught how to find him by ourselves. And I had this breakup in my early 20s that I'm the most grateful for because it put me on this path where our lives were so intertwined. I really needed to pull back from, he was very involved in church. And I pulled back because I didn't know how to be around him anymore. And in that process, I knew it was him that had hurt me, not God that had hurt me. It was very clean cut. And, but I just didn't want to be in the church building anymore. But I'd never had to, I'd never experienced not being in the church building before. So in my early 20s, I really had to figure out how to find God on my own. And I did, and I'm so grateful because it's been this then continuation of, obviously I'm very involved in church still, but I'll hear things. I don't agree with everything that our church says. I don't agree with every message, but if I don't agree with it, it doesn't spiral me spiritually. It doesn't offend me because I'm just like, well, this is it doesn't land with what I know God to be, but that's okay because I think everyone is trying their best to figure it out. Or if they're not trying their best, then that's a different problem. But I do think we're all trying to find God, and I think that it's kind of probably comes back to what we were saying before about like you need to be able to make mistakes. And I think you can make mistakes in what you think someone was. I think that when I look back on who I thought God was when I was 15, it's so simplistic. I kind of miss it, but I think it's I feel stupid when I think back on it because like it's so it's complicated, and I think spirituality is complicated because we just aren't made to really fathom what it is. But I guess the whole point is to find God, I think you have to lose him. Well, you can't find something unless you've lost it first, for one. And then, so that story about being in the wine country, I so remember being like, oh my God, I don't know anything anymore. Like it felt like someone pulled the rug out from under me and I lost everything I thought I knew until then. And I remember standing in the field and praying. I was like, I'm not going to shy away from anything I feel. I'm going to explore who I think you are. And I was very unconvinced of the goodness of God at that point in time. Like, it was a difficult season, not necessarily personally, but there were lots of shitty things happening to lots of people I loved, and I didn't really believe in the goodness of God, but I did believe he was real, and I do believe in Jesus. And so I decided that those would be the two things I tethered myself to. And I've talked about this before, I think, on like my Question Wednesdays, but I'll do, like, I'd say to anyone wanting to find God, pick a couple of things that are your non-negotiables. You believe this no matter what, even if it doesn't feel like that's true. Those are the things that you will believe, and they are unchangeable to you. And then dive in. Like, jump into the darkness, explore everything, but those two are the things you hold on to, or those three, whatever. For me nowadays, I would say I believe God is good, and he is real, and Jesus saved me. That would be my three tethers, and then everything else is up for grabs. Mm-hmm. Constantly.
I think it becomes dangerous too, because that's why we have like bonded so much, because I'm like, I am literally you in that stage. Like, there's so many things that I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm like, no, I've said this before, and I'm like, you really are one, if not the only, but one of the people that I actually can go to and like listen to for advice, because I feel like, I know, you're welcome, because I feel like it's almost frowned upon to like kind of take a break or take a step back and figure it out on your own. And I feel like I'd actually done that already before, and then you're like full force in it. And I think something you said too, like every 5 years you kind of go through I don't know, you know,
of self.
Yeah, and that's really helpful, but I think it's freeing as well, because it's okay to question things. It's okay. I think you should be questioning things. There was another thing too, actually, at your church when I was there, and they said something like, I remember when I like started going back to church in my like a few years ago, and they were saying there's only one thing you really have to agree on is like Jesus, there you go, and everything else again up for grabs.
Yeah,
but that is so healthy, because I think people and we all can get stuck on like certain things, and like that's actually not even the main point.
Yeah,
and then it'll push you away even more.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something. I also think like processing emotion, like when I struggle with just obviously being in such like an intense environment, I struggle with feeling a type of way that I was told wasn't okay, of like, I don't know if I agree with this, I don't know how I feel about this, or like that actually was bad. But then in my head, I was talking about this morning with Dom, I already can hear their rationale and the church language back to me. So I'm like, it's being okay and taking a step back and not like hating everything and demonizing it. I'm like, it's a tricky relationship, because it's like the best thing that's ever happened, sometimes the worst.
Yeah.
But it is okay to just take that time. And I think that's really important, and no one talks about that.
Yeah.
Except for Jonathan Martin. He's a pastor. Actually, I think I don't know if he's a preacher. I'm not sure if he has a church. But anyways, he wrote a book a few years ago, and I like got lunch with him and some friends like a few years ago, and he was talking about that, and he was one of the first people to talk about that. And I think back to the dinners that we had when he was in town, and like that stuff that he said to me 4 years ago is like the stuff that now I'm like, oh my God, you know? But I just think I thought because I'd already done it, I wasn't going to do it again, you know? Not the case. Yeah, I'm like, I'll do it again and again. Several times. Okay, okay, getting played by boys in your 20s.
Ugh.
It's the worst. So.
Ugh. Well, what's the question?
This is a topic. How maybe dealing with getting played by, no, what is a red flag in a boy that you're like, he's absolutely not worth it at the beginning?
Narcissistic traits, for sure. Liars, for sure. I am a really big believer of, I feel like girls are always like, no, that's not true, but it is. That boys, if they want to be with you, they'll make a way.
Yeah.
It's true. Like and then maybe there's this like a marginal percentage of boys who are so painfully shy that they won't do it. But you know what? It's like anthropologically illogical. Like, if it could end in an orgasm, we're all animals. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it could, they're gonna take the shot. Do you know what I mean? And if they're not, they're just not that interested. If they're the kind of boy that is reading texting you, and then they suddenly stop, and you're like, oh, he's not that interested in me. Like that movie, it's very harsh to watch, but we should all watch it, and we should remember
he's just not that into you.
He's just not that into you. I think I mean, it's always been my experience that if a boy is into me, you know very clearly. Lying, texting multiple girls, Inconsistency. I reckon you can maybe give people one shot of like if they miss something or if they bail on a plan. If it's a good excuse, you can usually tell if it's like a legitimate excuse. I would say like, yeah, flakiness, lying, sneaky. I hate sneaky people. I hate liars. They would be I wouldn't even say they'd be like red flags. They'd just be like blacklisted immediately. Lying is my
I think
hate liars.
Girls, for some reason, not to generalize, but generalizing, I guess, girls love to make up some story or to fill in the blanks or to do quite literally anything to make this guy who is honestly, you're probably out of his league, to make him for some reason like come up to your level and for it to make sense when it's like, no, it's actually just not. No, it's just not it.
It's not working.
Especially if it just gets so complicated, it's just leave it.
Yeah,
just leave it.
Yeah, I think it's a hard lesson to learn, but I don't know why. Because maybe it is across the board, but I definitely felt like, at least in, again, I guess maybe it's like a church environment thing where. Because there's a little bit more of an emphasis on like finding the one, so everyone is eagerly looking.
Yes.
Everyone's looking very, very hard all the time. I do feel like there is this weird, just kind of like this weird pursuit, and then that becomes the strange narrative in your head where girls will read into everything. And I think that it's pretty normal when you're a kid, like when you're in high school, to think like that. But when you're in your 20s, if you think you know who you're going to marry and you are not in a relationship with them, I'm sorry to tell you, that's not it. You aren't going to marry them. Probably. I mean, again, I feel like someone is going to be like, I married him and I knew. My brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, Ben's brother, the night that they met, they both knew that they were going to get married. So I guess there's that. But they met and they mutually knew it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's different. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's Jessa's like favorite topic because it's so insane. But didn't Ben say like didn't he like prayed to marry you that night, right?
The night we met.
Yeah.
Ben asked if he prayed that he would get to marry me. Wow, but again, it was one of those things where we had both dated other people.
Well, also, you guys were on a date, by the way. Like,
no, we weren't.
Wait. Oh, the night you met.
The night we met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you met. Regardless, you're in the same vicinity. Yeah. This is not someone you follow on Instagram and then like, yeah.
But I definitely, I mean, even I remember because Ben and I were together, so I can't remember when it was, but it was sometime in the last like 8 years. I had a friend who was much too old to be thinking this way, in my opinion, but she was really reading into everything that this guy was doing and like making it out as though she really developed a narrative in her head that he liked her, but he was like this because of this and this and this, and like just like you said, like filling in the blanks and making it into something that it wasn't. And he ended up coming to me being like, oh, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Or I had to have a conversation where I was like,
no,
I'm so sorry that he doesn't see you like that. I wish now looking back on that, I should have just been like, you have the conversation. And now we're going to talk about minding your own business in your 20s.
And transitioning, I think too, people along with like making these stories and narratives, like he's like this because of this or whatever, like, it's like if someone wants to be with you, they will. And then you think about, on one hand, I will say like there are things that I want to do, but I don't do because I'm not in the place to do them. Like clearly there's something stopping me. Mm-hmm. And I think that again is enough of a reason. That's enough of a reason to just be like, no, you have to let it go.
Yeah.
But it is such a terrible spot. Again, like I never want to date ever again. So we'll see. I'm like,
I'll find him.
I mean,
We'll get there.
we'll see.
DM me. No, don't.
Matchmaker.
Please don't.
Literally. I don't think there's a single guy listening to this podcast.
It's not the demographic.
No, it's not the demographic. Thankfully, actually, one time, did I tell you this story? This guy that I was dating, oh my God, I wanted to die. So, you know, we have like hundreds of, probably like 200 episodes at this point of the podcast, somewhere between 150 and 200, I think. Okay. I started dating this guy. And again, that's about an hour, give or take, a week of episodes for almost 3 years now, right? Yeah. Somehow, he goes and listens to a podcast with his sister-in-law, this guy that I was dating. And like they skipped some random part, and it is a part where I'm recording a podcast and I'm talking to my friends who live in Nashville, talking about how I'm like, oh, I just need to be with a country star. Like, kidding? And I'm talking this whole thing. That is the one clip they heard of the entire, you know how many episodes, how much footage? And again, that would happen to me.
Yeah. Was it your country star?
No, okay. Clearly I would not have messed that one up. My God, I would die. Okay, so let's end this on dealing with anxiety.
Okay. So nice and light.
Yeah.
It's such a beast. Okay. There's this book called First We Make the Beast Beautiful, which I started reading. I didn't even finish it, but the title alone blew my mind because it really started framing for me my anxiety a lot differently, which is there are obviously so many horrific and debilitating parts of an anxiety disorder, but there are silver linings to it, and you can't pretend that there aren't. Like, the parts of my brain that make me overthink things and make me anxious and will keep me up at night are also the same reasons why I can write really well. I'm good with detail. I'm good at overthinking the emotions of my characters. There are parts of my anxiety that I have applied to other parts of my life that have made me more empathetic, a better listener, a better friend. And I think that is a really, for me, when I realized that changed my relationship with anxiety. And I think that it's a faux pas on anyone's behalf to think you don't have a relationship with your anxiety, because you do. So I think the first thing you need to do is try to make it healthier. Know that it's one of those things where it's a feeling. It will go away eventually. I think that's really important. I know that, I mean, I've had anxiety attacks where I thought I was going to die, like in the moment. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny looking back on them because you're like, no, just take a breath, like you're okay. But I know, when we got the puppy, Ben was away. I had to call him. He was on the other side of the country. I was in my bathroom on the floor, holding my throat, sobbing, like I couldn't breathe properly. And I was like, this is the end. This is how I'll go out. And you look back on that and you're kind of like, it's a bit funny. It's never funny at the time. And talking about it in retrospect is completely different to experiencing it in the moment. But you have to know it will stop at one point. It will lift. That's the big thing with mental health, depression, whatever it is. It will stop. It is like a feeling. Feelings are ephemeral. Ephemeral things change. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I'd say about anxiety is change your relationship with it and don't be so hostile towards it. If you treat it more as if you try to broach it as not a friend, but kind of like an annoying cousin you have to deal with. Like, you just can't shake it. But the cousin only ever comes around when things are getting a bit shitty and you probably need to be paying attention to somewhere else. It's a red flag. So if you're anxious, there's something somewhere in your life is amiss and you need to be doing it. For me, it's usually sleep, or I'm not taking good enough care of myself. So I've now recognized when I start feeling a certain way, there are a few things that I need to do to kind of like realign myself better with myself. And that's all self-care, I guess, which is such a buzzword these days. But I guess that it's true. Like, I think again, circling back to knowing yourself, the more you know yourself, the more you can identify, okay, this part's the thing that's probably triggering this anxiety, and here are the things that make me feel safe. So I think knowing yourself well enough to know things that make you feel better, make you feel calm, make you feel grounded. And I'm not a very good meditator. I don't do it because my brain moves too fast all the time. I can't be that still in my thinking. But I have learned over time that things like Marvel movies, because they're so loud, they're louder than the rest of my brain. A Marvel movie, puzzles, Lego, things like that, anything that my focus has to shift from whatever I'm thinking about to doing something like that, or watching something very loud, will really help calm myself down. So that would be one thing, is I think knowing yourself well enough to know how to get yourself out of it if you can't. And then also be honest about it with other people. I know that it's hard because people who don't have anxiety really cannot understand anxiety. That's really burdensome. I know that, because that was a very big problem for me when I first was diagnosed. I probably had anxiety before it was like maybe 2 years before it became like the thing everyone was talking about. And it was so horrific with my family. Again, I guess because of that language in a church environment, which is like, think positive and, like cast your anxieties upon the Lord and whatever. And I don't think if that works for you, that's great. I'm genuinely so happy for you. It didn't work for me. And then I think it has this negative side effect of being like, well, then you're just not believing enough.
You're not praying enough.
It's you're the problem. That's not true. And that took me a long time to reconcile that. And Ben, who is perfect mostly, really struggled with anxiety at first. And it wasn't until I let him see a panic attack, I guess, wherein I usually would like remove myself to die. I think he saw me have one, and that changed it for him, because to people who don't have anxiety really just sounds like you're stressed and you're having a bad day, and they're kind of like, well, we all have bad days, we're all stressed. When you see a panic attack and you see the fear in someone's eyes, because a panic attack is like, I think they say on like a physiological level, it's your brain misfiring and kind of, it's like a fight or flight response in an inappropriate situation. So your brain is like, I'm dying, this is the end. And your body is kind of like, and that's what it is. So it's like this really visceral physiological response. And I think someone who doesn't have anxiety, seeing that changes it for them. So if you're in a relationship and it's becoming really difficult in your relationship because your partner just isn't understanding, firstly, I would say they're never gonna fully understand it. Stop trying, but let them in a little bit, because the more you let them in and the more that they can actually see the toll it takes on you. Like after I have a panic attack, I'm out for the day. Like it feels like I've ran a marathon. When they see that, I think that makes a little bit of a difference as well.
It's also like anxiety, having like legitimate anxiety, not just, like stress, like when you're actually like medicated for it.
Yeah.
In anxiety disorder, it's all illogical. So
Totally.
It's really difficult to explain when someone just thinks it's stress. I keep poking my eyes with this stuff. Just thinks it's stress, or like obviously, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point of anxiety, is that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Totally.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
This was
Thanks
really
for having
good.
me.
We're probably going to do another part 3 in like a few months, so don't worry about it. Where can they find you and buy the book?
You can buy the book on Amazon, is probably the fastest way, but also at magnoliaparksbook.com, and my Instagram handle is Jessa Hastings, Jessa Hastings. I'm not going to spell that. If you can't spell that, that's on you.
It'll be in the show notes below. Thank you.